welcome back to episode 3 of us playing Civ 6 as Nader Shah. So the last we left off, we just conquered Al-Muluk, and I think in this episode our goal is to conquer the rest of the Mongolian cities. Hopefully they don't have too many cities.
Yeah, hopefully.
And on this end of the empire, we're just going to keep going with all these pins I have planned. I put a few more for national parks just to know where to go, but I will hide them for now. Let the Persian take revenge on history. Let's do a little counter history
How do you
here.
like them apples?
Yeah, because Al-Muluk means apple orchard. We looked it up.
Yeah.
I think we're going to try to get the historical converse. Oh no, not our cat.
Oh no. No.
We're gonna try to get the historical conversation towards the Mongolian conquest. Let's see if we can do. How much history is that?
We got about 1,200 years to go through.
Yeah, we got this.
We got it.
And keep in mind, the Civilopedia stops where we stopped last episode. So there's a lot they're missing.
Yeah, they're missing the whole Sassanid dynasty, which is usually considered actually to be the strongest and the height of ancient Persia, which arises out of Persia, right, out of Fars, and it arises in revolt against the Parthians. And pretty quickly, the first leader, Ardashir, takes control, establishes a new dynasty, and the Sassanids take their name from a relative of the royal family named Sasan.
Right.
He was apparently the guardian of one of the sanctuaries at Persepolis, but again, we don't exactly know. But one of the interesting things about the Sassanids is that they're really trying to do a revivalist thing about the Achaemenids, even though they don't necessarily have that much detailed information about them.
Exactly. So we often say, it's the Achaemenids, Parthians, and Sassanids as the 3 ancient Persians, but there's a lot of time in between those 3, and by the time the Sassanids come to power, a lot of the symbolism of the first ancient Persian kingdom are sort of purposefully recalled upon as a way of establishing legitimacy.
Exactly.
It's not so clearly continuous, but there's an attempt at making it seem continuous.
Let me
Okay, we need to banish our cat.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
sorry.
Fifi, say bye to the camera.
What?
Bye, Fifi. Listen to her purr. Wait, put her purse next to. Yeah, you guys hear her purrs. Back to the warfare.
Yes.
Okay, so we just got some archers. I'm definitely going to do that. Let's actually see how much damage the immortals do to a city. Someone brought up the fact that they have -17.
I'm guessing that's just a balance thing, right? This is no historical reason for that.
I don't know, actually. Because they're pretty good at capturing cities, right? So yeah, it's 16 range because it's -6 damaged unit, 17% less effective versus fortification. So it does count for cities, which is maybe I should have had a few more archers here. But I guess with Nader Shah, it looks like we're getting the combat strength on the horse that's in the city. So that kind of makes up for it a little bit.
A little bit.
I wonder if that makes Nader Shah better at war than Cyrus. So I see a city here, and I believe this belongs to Qashqai. So it's a different city.
Different city down there, I guess.
Yeah, and we have Karakorum, which is the capital here.
Okay,
that's what we're
perfect.
going to work for today.
Nice. Yeah, so the Sassanids do a lot of things with the Achaemenid legacy. They name the state Iran. So it's the first time we have a state called Iran, even though it was a term used earlier. We have the adoption of Achaemenid sites like Persepolis, like Naxchar-Rostam, which we talked about. The Sassanids add their own inscriptions. They really take the Achaemenid Zoroastrianism, which wasn't really a state religion at the time, but, part of the court practice, and make it into an imperial state religion. Even though, for the most part, they were pretty tolerant of other faiths, particularly during the reign of Bahram, Zoroastrianism really becomes the only religion at the court.
Right.
But before that, you have multiple things. You have Christians there, you have Manichaeans, so Mani, the famous prophet of Manichaeanism, was actually at the court of the Sassanid kings. Mani's interesting, actually, because he is a painter. So most great prophets, give their prophecy in text, right? But Mani gives his in paintings.
Right.
So in the Persian tradition, Mani is considered to be like the height of of painters.
One of the great painters in this game, Behzad, is often compared to and called the Numani, which is sort of one of these mythologies or this mythical figures that becomes a reference for the entire Persianate world. And there's other ones from the Sassanid period, like Khosrow too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Khosrow is the name of two kings from the Sassanids. Khosrow the First is usually considered to be like the great king of the Sassanids. He defeats the Byzantines, Eastern Romans. He defeats the Göktürks, who were the first Turkic empire. Builds these enormous irrigation works. So if you look at a place like Shustar, they have huge dams and underground channels and reservoirs. So really complicated irrigation works. And he sponsors philosophy, literature. He builds a university in Gondishapur, which becomes really a site where Greek philosophy, Sanskritic philosophy, Mesopotamian philosophy are all melding together. So he's considered to be the height. Both him and his son, Khosrow II, are taken as the model for this romantic tradition called Khosrow and Shirin. Shirin is supposed to be a Christian princess. Khosrow is an Iranian ruler. And they have this epic romance. And so that continues throughout the Persianate world.
Okay, I'm trying to get a surround here on Karakorum. They have a horseman in there, making it a little bit tougher, but should be okay. And then we get our slinger in there.
Nice.
Perfect. So that's loyal now, which is good. So for now, I'm gonna appoint Pingala, I guess. Gordian maybe would be good. Here we're just trying to maneuver around the archer. Like, what is this archer doing? Just sitting in my Kermit Plaza, it's trying to learn about governance to take back.
Yeah.
And then
Am I a barbarian?
what I'll do is something like an envoy. Well, let me just double check.
Okay.
Maybe I can get Antananarivo on my side. That should be helpful in the war. Let's move the settler card in there, put in the first envoy you set, confirm, and then immediately go to mysticism, so it's one turn. And here, get Antananarivo. Yeah, let's flip them. There we go. Nice. But speaking of, how's my era score? Okay, I'm very close.
Pretty close.
And okay, that's something to keep in mind. I don't want too much era scores. I don't know if it's worth delaying my district for era score.
No, I don't think so.
And another one of these sort of mythical phrases or concepts that survive today is the Arch of Ctesiphon, which we spoke about in the Arab series.
I think we did, yeah. Ctesiphon, it's spelled with a C, a little bit confusing.
Yeah,
but
I said Ctesiphon in the last one. Looked it up, it's Ctesiphon.
I've said Ctesiphon at times,
Yeah.
but no, it's just Ctesiphon. One of the things that does remain is the Royal Audience Hall. And one of these Persianate forms that develops is the Iwan, right? It's a huge gateway. And in Ctesiphon, we have Taka Kasra, which is the name of this huge brick arch, which still survives somehow.
Yeah.
It's been damaged.
Yeah.
A lot of it's been damaged. In the 19th century, there's a lot more complete, but it really shows how like good an arch is, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that thing is intact more or less. Yeah, it became, like a sort of inspirational site for later architects, and it became a sort of mythic site as well. So a lot of these sites, as we talked about last episode, have kind of mythical names that are from the Shahnameh tradition or things like this, because yeah, people didn't know exactly which emperor built it, but they knew it was ancient Persian.
Right. And back to feudalism here. And speaking of feudalism, do you want to talk about the governance style of the Sassanids?
Yeah, Sassanids had a sort of nobility, essentially. They incorporated both the Parthian nobility and the Persian nobility. And so the Sassanid kings were really dependent upon the aristocracy. There's a concept, royal charisma. In the Shahnameh, that would be called Far. Essentially refers to the idea that the king rules by divine grace. But if there's some kind of catastrophe, some kind of huge defeat, it's pretty clear that divine grace has been suspended. And so in that case, it becomes essentially incumbent to depose the monarch. So that's what happens to Khosrow II. He gets really far, right? He defeats the Byzantines all the way up to where we are right now, which is the Asian side of Istanbul.
Yes.
And then Heraclius, the Byzantine emperor, pushes him all the way back to Ctesiphon, basically.
Damn.
And so pretty clearly the nobles said...
It's a miraculous. Heraclius the miraculous.
You should have changed his name.
Yeah. Okay, I see we have a crossbowman here and a new horseman here, which is fine. And these two are on farms, which should help. I took melee attacks with these two because they're on the farms. Should I go for it? Is there even a place to settle? No, there's
It's
no.
kind of like an edge, yeah. I guess he can't go anywhere.
No,
so.
it's all red, so they can't settle anywhere. So I think we'll just focus on this city for now.
We can take this over after.
Yeah, I think I want to get the city as soon as possible to help with the loyalty and maybe get the farms for the boost.
Yeah, so Khosrow II is actually deposed because of these defeats, and his daughters, Azamidocht and
Puran?
take the throne.
Yeah.
Not for very long. They are the first sort of queen regnants of the Sassanid Empire. And then the following monarch, Yazdegerd III, rules for a little bit of time, but is eventually defeated by the incoming armies of the early Muslims.
Right.
Um,
Ooh, okay, yeah. So we get a commercial hub in Gordian for Erascore. We are getting over. So maybe I will change this for now. How much time do we have? 12 turns, probably. I think it's worth it. I'm going to change that one. Okay, so now we're going to settle the city.
okay, let's see what we get. Tushpa.
We're definitely going to have to change some of these names. Yeah.
So we're going to do something a little bit confusing. We're done talking about the Sassanids.
That's it.
We got to move on. We got 1,200 years to cover.
Yep.
So we're now going to move across to a slightly similarly named dynasty.
No one get confused.
The Samanids. However, there is a gap we should mention here. The gap is the early Islamic period, the Umayyads and the Abbasids. The reason we're leaving a gap is because we talk about these in our Arabia game, but also because there's actually a lot of continuities between this late Sassanid period and the Samanid period.
Right. And we just got Karakorum.
Nice.
So the Mongolian capital has fallen.
Nice.
We are going to keep this city and we are going to move Liang. Hopefully that's going to be enough loyalty. Yeah. Perfect.
So the Sassanids end in the 600s. The Samanids begin in the 800s. So we've just skipped about 200 years. What was interesting is that we just moved into Central Asia here with Karakorum. And the Samanids actually start off in Khorasan in Central Asia.
I'm going to move up here, grab it, and take a shot at the barbarian. So it delays us a little bit, but hopefully it'll be fine.
So the Samanids are named after Ismail Samani, who is originally a vassal of the Abbasids, but he takes control and establishes his own state. They really define themselves as Persian kings, right? So they sponsor Persian literature, Persian writing, Persian poetry, and they start adopting also the titles of the Sassanid kings, like Shah and Shah. For this reason, the Samanid period is often called the start of the Persian Renaissance.
Right.
Or the Iranian intermezzo.
Yes, two very Italian
very
titles.
Italian words, yeah. I think the reason for this is that in both cases, there seems to be a kind of return to like a classical heritage. So there's a kind of an analogy made between the Italian Renaissance and the Persian Renaissance. But the time scale is a bit different. The Persian Renaissance happens much sooner in comparison.
I'm really confused how to move my troops here. This is probably like the hardest part because there's a crossbowman here and we have Enten and Narivo coming to help and we have the stupid freaking
encampment.
Yeah, and the encampment stops my movement. I am bringing an archer across and I'm bringing the merchant.
This guy's seen a lot of use.
Hopefully I can get the merchant to get the crossbowman out. I think for now I definitely want to just heal on this unit. And should I bother with the barbarians?
No, don't bother with it.
What if they send like a whole thing after me? Where are they? I saw it come out of here, right?
Yeah. So one of the things the Samanids are known for is sort of hosting all of these polymaths, right? All these people who are skilled in so many areas. So among the poets, we have Rudaki, we have Dakiki. From the scientists and the mathematicians and the astronomers, we have Al-Razi.
Which was in Civ 5,
was
right?
in Civ 5. I think he's a great scientist, maybe?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Scientist or engineer, who is well known for his mathematical treatises and medical treatises, actually. We also have Ibn Sina, a very, very important philosopher, probably one of the most important philosophers of human history.
Big claims.
Big claim, but I'll back it. Al-Biruni. And then we just also have, the birth of a political literature, right? The Mirrors for Princes genre really takes off here, which is the advice literature for kings.
Okay, it looks like the crossbowman's staying in there. So let's go after the encampment first. Okay, so let's get our shots in here. I'm still going to do range shots because I don't want to damage them too much and have the crossbow hit.
That makes sense.
Okay, claim great person. Ooh, we get a great merchant.
Nice.
That gives us
Some
more trade routes.
More bait.
More bait, yeah. Exactly. I think eventually I'm going to redirect all my trade routes to Gordian because I was watching someone else play Nader Shah and they mentioned how the government plaza gives you like better production if it's in the city that everyone is setting trade routes to. And I was like, Oh, shoot. I already placed down my government plaza in Gordian.
Well, it's going to be a real Gordian knot up there.
Yeah. I don't get that reference. Is that just like a knot name?
What?
Is that just like a name of a knot?
No, it's a knot. Alexander cuts the knot.
Who's Gordon?
It's like their tourist attraction in Gordian to say, we got a big knot. No one can undo it. And then Alexander cuts it.
Oh, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Okay, how are we doing on era score? We are quite over on era score.
Can we get a heroic gauge? Is there a possibility?
No, that's not how it works, honey.
Oh, okay.
That's not how it works. A heroic age only works if you went into a dark age.
I see.
And then you get
can't
a
just
golden.
have huge amounts of era score.
No, it's not based on huge amounts.
Okay.
So the Sassanids are in Central Asia, right?
The Samanids?
Sorry. Yeah, the Sassanids. Whoops.
Yeah. They are in Central Asia. They're mostly around modern-day Uzbekistan, Tajikistan. So, like, for example, Samarkand, Bukhara.
And in Bukhara, we have a mausoleum, right?
Yeah, we have a mausoleum built by the Samanids. It is a really influential building. It's pretty small. It's actually very big, but it's a cubical structure that has a very round dome on the top, a kind of not quite onion dome, but very round dome. It's made of this elaborate brickwork on either side. It's perfectly symmetrical. This form, you're going to see it in the Timurids, you're going to see it in the Seljuks, you're going to see it in the Mughals. I mean, that form is almost the basis for like the Taj Mahal type form, right? So it's such an influential building, but it's just like the size of a kiosk.
And one of the really interesting things about it is the brickwork. So we have, I believe, baked brickwork, which is why it looks so good today. And it's done in this very quilted pattern that we can sort of make reference to rugs and fabric quilting. And it's really this just beautiful sort of facade as well as interior that's really representative of what you can do with baked brick.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the Sassanids and the Samanids.
Yes.
And why am I struggling so much with this? And that's, a good chunk of history.
Very
We're
good
just
chunk.
Flying through,
Yeah.
but I think it's important to get to the Ghaznavids and maybe the Seljuks.
Yeah, for sure. So the Ghaznavids are a successor dynasty to the Samanids, and they are actually ruled by the Turks, right? It's a Turkish dynasty. The Turks were slave soldiers of the Samanid court, and they seized control of the state. But culturally, governmentally, there's not really a big difference. They still maintain the same patronage of Persian artists, poets. They still maintain a very Persianate culture. The main difference is that Mahmud of Ghazna is sort of main leader of the Ghaznavid Empire. He moves into India, loots, destroys huge amounts of temples. He uses that wealth essentially to fund an immensely cosmopolitan, immensely artistic court culture. He is actually the patron of Ferdowsi, right? The writer of the Shahnameh. And there's a lot of funny stories. They had a kind of slightly tense relationship because on one hand, Mahmud is giving him money to write this epic that's gonna put his name out there throughout time. But Ferdowsi, as a poet, is not really bound to respect Mahmud that much, right? He also has a kind of satirical edge. He has a critical edge. And so, he writes a very nice dedication to Mahmud. But then there's all these stories about their conflicts. Like, Ferdowsi finishes the Shahnameh after 30 years of writing it. He had made a deal with Mahmud that for every line he wrote, he would get 1 gold coin. And the Shahnameh is like 50,000 lines. So Mahmud's like, you know what? I'll give you silver coins. Ferdowsi's like, oh, okay, well, I have 1 more line I want to write, so let me just take the manuscript back. And so he does that, and on his way out, he writes some graffiti on the walls of his palace.
What?
Saying basically like, I shouldn't have expected any more from the son of a commoner. Mahmud is very angry, sends his guys out to go kill Ferdowsi, but Ferdowsi runs away. And then finally, Mahmud kind of has this reputation now of being a cheapskate. He feels bad about it, so he's like, okay, I'm going to invite Ferdowsi back, give him the money. So Ferdowsi finally comes back, but on the day that the gold coins finally arrive, Ferdowsi dies.
That's so tragic.
Yeah.
Okay, let's buy all of our builders. That's what I was saving my gold for. And how many more turns until 7 more turns? Okay. Maybe let's see if we can get this city in 8 turns because I don't want to get all that era score. Okay. And do I wait to settle this city? 7 turns? I think I'll wait.
Okay.
I'm gonna wait. I might have to sacrifice an archer. It's something that I'm willing to do, honestly. Let's see.
Sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Nice,
Actually,
okay.
it's fine. Okay, let's move in.
But there's a very nice translation of the Shahnameh by Dick Davis, who was a translator of a lot of Persian literature. The only thing that's a little bit of an issue is he's missing the introduction, so it just goes right into the story. My advisor also has a very nice book on the Shahnameh, which I can recommend. It also goes through the storyline, but it connects it to different aspects of epics and different aspects of critical nature of poetry and literature.
Right. Oh, we get to do some industries now, and we're gonna start on Petra.
Nice.
Oh, I still haven't unlocked it. First, I gotta unlock it.
But the Samanids and the Ghaznavis aren't the only kinds of these dynasties. So we also have the Buyids,
Right.
who are a Shia dynasty actually, but they control most of western Iran, Baghdad, Mesopotamia. They similarly are adopting all of these ancient Persian titles, right? They call themselves Shahanshahs, so King of Kings. They are sponsoring a lot of Persian literature, kind of utilizing Achaemenid motifs, right? So all throughout then what is now Iran, Central Asia, you have this kind of revival of Persian aesthetics, essentially, even though it is still under the Abbasid suzerainty.
Right.
And it should be noted, though, that it's not Persian to the exclusion of Arabic. Right? So most of these people, most of these writers will write, for example, their scientific treatises or their medical treatises in Arabic, right? But then they'll write their poetic stuff, their political stuff in Persian. So there's a kind of expectation of fluency in both.
As well as Turkic or Turkish?
Turkic becomes much more increasingly prevalent as the century progresses, particularly as Turkic dynasties take control. Turkish becomes more important. It's still, at this point, more of a folk culture language. So, for example, the Ghaznavid kings will, talk amongst themselves in Turkish, but when they commission their bureaucrats to do something, it'll be in Persian. It won't really be until later Seljuks, Timurids, Ottomans that Turkic becomes like a political language as well.
And speaking of Seljuks, that's probably our next.
That's our next
empire,
topic.
right?
Yeah, we're there. Yeah,
We made it.
We made it. So the Seljuks are, a Turkish dynasty, Öztürk, which is the same branch of Turkish that modern Turkish descends from. And the Seljuks really are like the next great empire, right? They're huge. They have this enormous expanse that goes from Anatolia all the way to the edges of India, all the way down south to Arabia. So it's a huge empire. They continued to sponsor this revival of Persian. Seljuks are actually invited in by the Samanids as, regional governors, as generals, right? Because they have this sort of army that is actually kind of similar to the armies of the Germans in the late Roman Empire. So it's both an army, but also like their whole people are following the army essentially, right? It's a migratory army. And because they have this force of extremely skilled horsemen, horse archers, they become really regional power brokers in that area. They are named after Seljuk Bey, who was one of their earlier leaders. They gradually seize control of the state and rapidly begin to expand. They govern the state as a kind of family possession, right? So actually the brothers, their uncles will rule the state simultaneously, and they'll divide sections between them and say, okay, this brother will take that, this brother will take this. So they're ruling it as a familial possession, a household possession. So one of their most expansionist leaders is Tughral Bey. He really conquers almost all of Iran. He moves the capital to Ray, which we have as a city, and he is, making this huge empire, but continuing to sponsor huge amounts of literature, architecture, and his tomb is in Ray, which is just south of Tehran. And it's a very interesting tomb. It's made out of brick, and I think you'll see that almost all Seljuk architecture in the eastern part is out of brick.
Right, but that's not true for the whole empire. There's a lot of stone buildings too.
Yeah, in the west, in Anatolia, it's mostly stone. But in the east, in Iran, it's mostly brick.
Yeah, which goes to show architecture especially, right, is something that's often adaptive of the region as well. So a lot of times these empires would not just bring in their architecture, but would adapt it to the region, especially because you need local craftsmen.
No, for sure, because also the climatic conditions are so different, right? Like, Yas is like plus 40 degrees Celsius, whereas Anatolia can be minus 20, minus 30, right? Because of that, you need to have like very different architectural styles. So yeah, the Seljuks begin moving west, and their leader Alp Arslan is the one who defeats the Byzantines at the famous Battle of Malazgirt. Again, it's not quite as catastrophic as sometimes it's made out to be, but it essentially means that Inner Anatolia from this point on will be Turkish, right? Which is also one of the reasons why, the Byzantine state gradually begins to call for aid from the Crusades. And that will be mostly under Kılıç Arslan, which is a little bit later, but already at that time they're very pressed, right?
So in the capital, I'm just chopping as fast as I can, as always. Chop, chop, chop. And I think because of the sugar industry, I have a lot of room for housing. So I think I'm going to chop out all these bananas.
Wow.
Say goodbye to the bananas. More era score. I should have waited. What am I doing? What are we at? 3 turns. Okay, I want to also make sure I purchase all my builders before then. Oh, and I should use my faith for a settler.
Nice.
Great. Let's get the next settler out.
There's a barbarian man-at-arms down there.
Oh no!
You have your chariot there, but I'm not sure how useful it is.
Not useful. Well, I'm just not gonna go over there, I guess.
Just don't look at it. As long as if I can't see them, they can't see me.
I'm gonna need some units. I think I'm done buying builders, so I'm gonna change that out. So let's put in more production. So the Seljuks are like the Samanids and the Sassanids and the Ghaznavids, literally all of them, well known for their patronage of the arts, and that's where a lot of the great people related to Iran are from.
Yeah, a lot of the great people in Civ are from the Seljuk period. Literature, philosophy, science. So among them we have Omar Khayyam, who is actually, I think as we talked about maybe in the Arabia game, he is a scientist in this.
He is a great scientist.
Yeah.
Let me just double check that. Yes, so he's a medieval great scientist, and I have the mod-in that lets you see photographs. There would be no photographs. That's like they're supposed to be real great people.
Yeah.
But okay, so we said in the Arabian series that Omar Khayyam is better known as a poet, but during his time period, he was better known as a scientist, whatever that means.
Yeah, he was, an astronomer. I would say mostly an astronomer, but also a mathematician, geometrist. And his poetry was actually more of a side hobby, right? I mean, just being a cultivated person during that time, you should be a poet also, but he wasn't really known as a poet at that time.
Right. Are you cultivated enough? Are you a poet?
Let me see your poems.
Yeah.
He's very important in the fields of geometry, algebra, a lot of stuff involving cubic equations. It was also very important as an astronomer. So, for example, he is asked by the Seljuk king Nader Shah to build an observatory. They are able to do these amazing calculations at this observatory. They calculate the length of the year to 11 decimal points, which every year it changes at the 6th decimal point. So they're calculating it to such exact numbers, and they use those calculations to create the Jalali calendar, which is the basis for the modern Iranian calendar. And it's actually so much more accurate than the Gregorian calendar, the one we use.
Yeah.
I wish we had the Jalali calendar, because I feel like I'm just...
Well, I don't like that New Year's is on January 1st for absolutely no reason. When I was younger, I had a petition going on. Can we change when New Year's is? Because why is it in the middle of the cold? We're from Canada, so it's especially cold.
Yeah.
And so I just think, the Persians got the calendar right. We have the solar calendar.
So accurate.
It's super accurate. New Year's is on March 20th, 21st, which is the spring equinox. It just makes a lot more sense. And maybe I'll link my petition below. No, I'm kidding. I gave up on that petition.
Please sign.
Okay, so here I feel like I'm teasing the audience a lot, but I just really don't want the era score. Am I really going to wait 2 turns? That's such a tease that I'm going to wait 2 turns.
Okay.
I don't know if this is a good idea or the worst idea I've ever had. Right, so the Jalali calendar comes from the observatory.
Yeah, the observatory by Omar Khayyam in Esfahan. Omar Khayyam, as we said, at the time not known as a poet, but he wrote these sort of, voluminous collections of quatrains, 4-line poems. Yeah. And in the 19th century, Edmund Fitzgerald finds, a couple of these poems and kind of rearranges it into this thing we call the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. It's really more Edmund Fitzgerald's thing. I gotta say, out of the translations, I think he does a pretty good job.
You
Like,
think
it's
so?
it's not related to what Omar Khayyam wrote, but you know, he created something original out of it. So, you know,
What you always want from translations, an original poem.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not a translation, but it's a good poem. So, you know, we'll see that when we come to Rumi's translations. I think
Yeah.
much worse.
Who is another great person in Civ, right? Rumi, also
He
from the
is.
Seljuk period.
Also from, yeah, he's from in the west. The Seljuks kind of last a little bit longer, so they last as what's called the Sultanate of Rum. In the east, they're defeated and become part of the Khwarezmian Empire. And Rumi, Mevlana, is, I would say, considered probably the most important mystic.
Yeah.
One of the most important poets in the Islamic context, in the
Yeah.
Sufi context.
And he's called Rumi because he is not from Rum.
No, he's not from Rum. So, for those who didn't watch our Ottoman series, Rum means Anatolia,
Right,
right?
Rome.
Rome. He is actually from the east, right? He's from
So we forgot where he was born. Let's
Where's he
see if it
from?
says. Born to the
Khwarezmian.
Khwarezmian Empire, modern day Afghanistan or Tajikistan. And then he later settles in the Sultanate of Rum, which is the Seljuks, right?
yeah. You know, his main works are the Masnavi, right? Masnaviya Manavi, which just means mystical couplets. But because the work is so important, just the term couplets, Masnavi, becomes the name of this work.
Right. And in Persian and Turkish, he's called Molana, which just means master. So imagine being so great that your name is just master.
Yeah, and it is great.
Yeah. And okay, we have entered the next golden age. So this is what I've been waiting for. Here we go. We are going to finally get rid of, well, yeah, okay, here we go. We're finally going to get rid of Mongolia. Good to know ya.
Will not stand the test of time.
Nope, that is era score. We get our encampment. Here we are going to settle. Does that even? Yep, that was more era
Nice,
score.
more era score.
And get our. I don't need that. Get the wine online, and here we are going to settle. That was not more era score. Could have done that anyways. And I think that was all I was waiting to do. That was sort of the main things.
Okay.
Yeah, so from this point on, I think we're gonna have to decide what dedication we want to do. I'm thinking we want free inquiry instead of monumentality. But I'm not quite sure which one would be better, so I'm gonna take a little bit of time to think about it.
Sounds good.
And I think in the next episode we'll pick up with the Seljuks because I think they deserve a
They
bit
deserve
more.
a little bit more,
Yeah.
for sure. We'll do Seljuks, maybe Safavids, and then get into Nader Shah.
Yeah. See you all next time.
See you.